Hello, Bl'Artagnan here with 6 Warrior Quest 3. We're bringing a team featuring a number of favorites. Shocker, I know, I didn't do that in the last video at all. Featuring Exdeath, Gladio, Yang, Vayne, and Lude. There's also a mystery 6th partner who won't be appearing, so don't worry about that. Before we get into it, hit that like button on the video, helps me out quite a bit, and hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the content and want to see more like it. We're slowly inching our way towards 1,000 subscribers, and if everyone who actually watches these videos subscribed, then we'd be there already. So every little bit helps. So what do we got going on here? The enemy has, of course, jumped into their first time. Very scary, very dangerous. Our way of dealing with it is Gladio. Alongside Exdeath, I guess, technically, he provided an attack down, but Gladio, of course, is the real defensive linchpin here. Young is here to mostly waste our time with counters that do basically no damage at the moment, because our these guys, they have high defense, very high defense, and or high brave damage resistance. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's hard to do damage to these guys, especially without brave gains. They have that aura negative 400% attack and high brave, which is insane. The fact that Exdeath just capped there is a testament to how insane his attack scaling off onto his battery is, because his poison's gonna be doing like nothing. It's okay, though. We have no Gauge Charger on this team. I know, crazy, wild, insane. Not bringing Aerith, not bringing Hope, not bringing Penelo, like, what the heck? But that's okay, because you know what? You don't need to bring Gauge Chargers to every fight. If you want to take things a little slower, that's your prerogative. And if you want to spend, most of the fight watching Yang animations and Exdeath animations and not Gauge Charging and have to speed your video up by like 2.5% instead of the usual 2, because otherwise it's going to take a half hour. That's your prerogative. Speaking of which, Void. There we go. The Exdeath BT effect. I'm going to be further slowing us down with these HP poison procs. 82,000. That is just nothing. God, I hope his FR makes him somehow scale with Force Time, because otherwise it's nothing. There's nothing here. Either that or just give him, like, I don't know, 6 HP dumps AoE on each of his attacks or something crazy like that. Hashtag Justice for Exdeath. But we're now ready to set up, so Yang is going to start the Kurasame call. We're doing that so that he hits the weakness damage, and as you can see, that is a tremendous boost to us. Exdeath's BT, of course, also provides, I think, an 100% attack up bonus, which definitely helps mitigate the enemy defenses here, or negative aura. Actually, the reason I mentioned that I had a 6th unused partner is I brought Terra here with the intent of using her FR to cancel the enemy's debuff aura, because you can do that if you cancel their force time with it, but only if you cancel their force time. So it's kind of tricky, because you need to enchant Terra, Kurasame call, I guess, and then while they're in force time, turn warping every turn, as you may remember, you have to hit him with that FR. And that's a tall order, so I ended up not using it, not needing it. So I guess this is technically a 5-man quest. Or 5 warrior quest, I should say. Vayne is here now. The only FR gauge charging we're going to be doing here is using the burst phase pretty much purely for gauge charging. A little optimization we did here. I don't know if you noticed, we started with the EX to get his stacked buff up, 3 stacks. Then we used his his FR. The reason we did this is because he gets bonus brave damage based on the number of stacks he had, so I wanted to make sure he had the buff up before we went into the FR. I know he gets the buff from the FR, but I wasn't sure if it would apply before or after. And then, since the FR gives more turns of it, he's at 3 turns, we then finish with the LD here to extend that to 5 turns as opposed to 4 if we had ended with the EX or something like that, This, of course, doesn't matter at all, because we did, like, no damage. But it's okay. This means that going into his force time, which we'll be doing very soon, he'll have 5 turns of his Conqueror's power buff, and this means that he can save on LD uses later in the force time. Vayne is here, of course, because I don't have Tifa built, and who needs Tifa when you have Vayne? That's an equivalent comparison. Mistake here, actually, just now. I actually used Young's EX, and I should have used the LD. This is actually an important piece if you're using Vayne and Young together. I've talked about this before, but it changes the timing of who does what. Right now, you see, Vayne's follow-up happens after Young's follow-up. And that means that Young's follow-up doesn't get the plus 20% bonus that he would have gotten if it happened after Vayne's follow-up, as you see here. So that actually is a pretty substantive damage loss just because I pressed the EX even instead of the LD. The big shiny button has to be pressed and all that jazz. Something you'll notice as well, since we're about to hit their threshold attacks, and you've seen how awesome Young is with those threshold attacks, before we tagged out X-Death, we used Lewd to charge his EX, and then we used X-Death to apply his EX debuff, Power of the Void, which, in addition to draining the enemy's Brave to 0 after every turn, akin to Faris, it also reduces their HP damage to 0, and so we get to punch them as hard as we want and get as many counter procs as we want. Fun fact, Vayne's FR is also an off-turn FR. I know that doesn't come up often because he turn hogs so much, but in situations like this, where you're pushing thresholds and forcing them to attack you during your turn hogging, it's actually pretty massive, because this means every time they attack us, we're getting 10 to 15% bonus FR charge based on Young and Gladio's counterattacks. I don't know why Young's counter is only a 70% chance in this day and age, in the year of our Lord 2022, but apparently that's what Squex decided was necessary for this character to remain balanced. Anyway, we are pushing closer and closer to the next threshold. We're going to try to push past the 60% threshold, of course, and see if we can't dip even lower if possible. Given how much bonus we're getting here, we are going to end with Brothers, but that's okay. That'll be just a huge chunk of damage, and it will keep the EX debuff from X-Death on them, so when we come out of the summon, we'll still be protected from whatever thresholds we may trip well in the summon. The trick with Rushdown, as always, is to make sure that any mechanics that are designed to stop Rushdown are mitigated, and that's what X-Death is here to do. Nice thing about the 6-warrior format is it actually lets you do something like bringing Lewd in order to charge an EX for like X-Death or Beatrix, like, kind of a emergency button EX, which normally isn't up all the time. But in this case, you're able to charge it when you need it, tag Lewd out, tag X-Death out, so you don't have to worry about X-Death sitting on the field and bogging down your run with his inefficient HP poison animations and all that stuff. Actually, if we want to sit, it's better than Alphanon, I guess. But, speaking of, we're actually going to bring him back in because I think he's going to do more damage than Vayne is at this point. And the other reason we're doing this is because Vayne... wait, no? Yeah, it's because we're in the summon and Vayne does, he does a lot less damage per action. More damage per turn because of the way his free turns work out, but less damage per action, and since summon is entirely free turns, makes more sense to bring in someone like X-Death who, between his ET effect with the HP cap and the attack up and all that, and the fact that he just kind of does a bunch of true damage, makes more sense to have him on the field. There we go. Especially with the raised HP cap from Brother Summon. You'll love to see it. We tagged in Lewd again, just to quickly recharge X-Death's EX. Of course, we had to tag him in earlier to recharge his own EX with the LD. It's a 6-warrior quest I find at its best is you're doing all these kind of jiggery-pokery, tag in, tag out, switch up stuff, which is pretty awesome. I enjoy that. I think it's pretty great. It means the fight can bring more mechanics because you're bringing more stuff to deal with it. That said, I think overall, as players, we have access to a lot more power than these fights can deal with. I'm sure plenty of people, you've probably seen plenty of single-digit turn Renoa and Tifa runs and stuff like that. Remember, you don't need Tifa if you have Vayne. Can't say that with a straight face. That's okay. We don't have Tifa here, and that's just fine. We are going to be okay. The tricky bit now, right here, is because we do so little damage, we want to reapply that X-Death debuff before hitting that threshold, but not so soon that it falls off because they turn warp or something like that. So we're kind of praying at this point that Young and X-Death don't push them below that last 20% threshold, because even with Gladio on the field, the threshold attack that it brings along just kind of blows up his allies. And we did not bring Aerith here. We did bring the Aerith base call on X-Death to raise his attack to make his HP poison more effective, you see that, but that wouldn't be enough to save both of them. God, this turn warping is so much turn warping. In theory, I could have tried to do something silly involving Vayne and the off-turn counter stuff that I was doing before, but I figured it was just easier just force time and force the thresholds and just let them kind of, uselessly use their force time against Gladio and X-Death. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be landing just right here. Force time is just ending. They're at 21%, and X-Death is going. So he can go ahead and apply his EX debuff right now. The Power of the Void. Here we go. The Yang counter screwed up my timing. I forgot he did that. Here we go. The laws of the universe mean nothing. Let that be a lesson to you, stupid robots. Machine learning, that's what that is. There we go. Last threshold attack brought about. So we are effectively safe from all harm at this point. The only thing we have to worry about is failing to meet turn count, I guess. for the last 30% of their collective HP or whatever. Using focus there because something else Young has is a significant attack generic buff that I actually used Penelo as I tried using Penelo as a gauge charger here and accidentally replaced the attack buff with her HP regen, and that just wasn't as helpful. So Penelo got tagged out in favor of Terra, who ended up not being useful. It's all good though. Getting one last proc of X-Death's BT effect before we, well, I mean, he has one last turn of it, but getting a quick cheeky thing. I actually didn't realize that, I forgot that Aerith's LD call now applies her LD buff, or debuff, which is awesome. 4 turns of them not buffing and taking increased HP damage and generally being sad. We're going to actually use the Leo base call here as well, because as you can see, A has a lot more hit points, so it's going to survive longer. And that's going to, and Vayne has historically needed a little help capping his Brave damage. Using the Luna Freya call here to set up, we're healing up Young with the base call, then using the LD call so we can go big sword, and then go right into the Force time. Goodness, I'm glad I hydrated before this video. Lots of guttural growling during the BT animations. Here we go. Look at this. That's a cool animation. God Slayer, the Robot Slayer? Bot Slayer? Bot Slayer? Bot Slayer, there we go. GPU Slayer? I don't know. So at this point, from the rest of the battle, we're just going to kind of use the rest of Vayne's FR to kill A. B will die incidentally through Young follow-ups, and X-Death poisons, as I mentioned, just kind of bogging us down there with those additional animations, but that's alright, we're here for that. So that that's kind of the fight here. We're just about done. As you can see, Vayne is still quite relevant, still quite capable of clearing content, which is, you like to see it, I know. I mean, as you guys have known, I'm a longtime Vayne apologist and think the character's vastly underrated in every iteration he shows up in, but then again, I'm also a big fanboy of the character, so I guess that's that. Also a fanboy of Young, look at that, killing that robot, there we have it. Cool. Well, I hope you enjoyed, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. You, stay classy. Adios.